Continue.
Thank you. We look at our plan of conservation and development, and we look for consistencies or inconsistencies. And overwhelmingly, my commission cites something called community character. Although our town population is projected to increase steadily towards 20,000, the demographic growth will be uneven. In our plan of conservation and development, we describe that based on the U.S. Census, our town had about 2,700 citizens over the age of 62 in the year 2000. 10 years later, that 2,700 has climbed to 4,050. And that trend continues to increase. That's 47% increase in people over the age of 62 in 10 years. Simultaneously, our school enrollment over the last 10 years has dropped 13%, and that trend appears to be continuing. Do these numbers indicate a change in our community character? Later this year, when we reopen the boardwalk, will this change our community character? I think so. As the Board of Selectmen manages the town's response to these changes, which will ripple across all departments, let's tell the taxpayers we have a full-time town planner on our team. I believe this is a fiscally responsible decision to make right now in this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll open up for questions and comments for the planning department. What Mr. Shook is talking about is there was a request to add, I think, 2 additional staff members to the planning department budget, one being a GIS analyst and a kind of
correct, a GIS and this Geographic Information Systems analyst, who would also double as like an assistant planner. The other position would be in lieu of, if the planning director was restored to a full-time position, the ability for me to do wetland enforcement and provide support staff would require
make sure that microphone's
an additional position, and I think that was proposed to be funded under the inland wetland budget. I believe that is 132 versus 117. So,
and you'll see that when we get to inland wetlands. So, in concert with all the other departments and all the other requests for personnel, I maintained our current staffing and budget levels, and was unable to support this financially, though spiritually my heart is I understand what you need. We are a town with some growth, with some changing demographics, with some increased enforcement needed in the inland wetlands department, of which we only pay you 1 day's worth of work for, and it's got to be at least 50% of your work right now. We're in a place down there where we could use a hand. We can't afford it right now in this budget. We're in the 4% increased budget area. We're trying to find ways to save, so it's not something I can support right now. We certainly can talk about it. It's certainly something you can consider and add back in. Gary and Brian made a compelling argument for the GIS analyst to showing the savings we'd have if a GIS was implemented in all departments throughout the town. The savings or the enhancement or the quality increases that we get from other departments, the value we get in this position, which would pay for itself, at least in value, if not in income.
correct.
So, questions from the board?
I do have a question. Do we have an intern program in this town? Do you know?
Not officially. We don't have an intern coordinator or anything. I think if there's any department that screams for internship, it would be this department. And you've utilized interns in the past.
That's correct, specifically for GIS mapping.
Yeah. People on their way to getting their master's or doctorate in planning,
For just their BS.
or even their BS, they probably need some field sort of work. They need to be out there.
Right,
earning
that's
credits.
what I hear from college students, is that they need practical, real-life experience
Right.
in order to get their jobs.
So does anyone know if we ever had, like, intern? I know we've had unpaid interns, but we've never had really an intern program
Right.
that we know of.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean-
well, I think the tax department takes on summer work that I don't want
Sure.
to call them an intern, but I mean,
They're part-time
they
help.
certainly work part-time help.
It's
Yeah,
part-time
it's-
help.
I think that's kind of how Dave's integrated Mike into this whole deal, right? He was an intern basically and morphed into a full-time job. So I'm not saying that it
That's more seasonal help than internship. I mean, a college kid getting credits
Right.
for helping.
I mean, I'm certainly open to the idea of beginning a program of interns to show the value of what GIS can bring to the town. And you know, just starting the discussion that it's an invaluable resource that's going to help, in my opinion, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, the Planning Commission, Zoning Commission, and the other boards and commissions in the town to make better informed decisions. And I'd be happy to later on this year, come back and present to you the information that I crafted in 2012, which was a return on investment study for GIS. I can update it to today's numbers and share that with you, share with you the benefits that the town could reap with a full implementation of the program. Because the investment up front, the capital cost is significant. You know, it's over $100,000. So in maybe a phased program, it would be appropriate. And introducing that later on this year, so maybe we can better plan, no pun intended, to implement such a program. And I think that's be a good direction to go, at least from this point, if the resources aren't available to fund a full-time position.
Yeah, we don't have the in my opinion, we don't have the resources to be adding positions in any department this year. Never mind two. And you will. This commission will hear from other department heads tonight who have gone through the same thing with budget planning. But I think you and I could have a serious. The three of us could have a serious discussion over the course of the year in planning our exact needs, how we can go about getting it, and maybe start. Adding two in any department is kind of taboo. So how do we do it with one and an intern? But marching toward the eventual goal.
Absolutely, thank you.
Right now we have an inland wetlands officer who works 7 hours a week. Technically, correct? 7.5
On the books, yes.
on the books.
Yeah.
More likely, it's 50% of your time.
Right
And
now
with the
it's
growth of our town, with the gateway development, with
But
all
what's the real time then?
It's several years back I had broken that out. I didn't bring that with me tonight, but it was probably about a good quarter, 25% of my time was devoted to inland wetlands.
Shouldn't we be showing it like that?
I certainly can. I'd be happy to bring
I mean, it should be in this budget like that.
well,
I mean, that's
it's
what
the
it
same
is.
money.
It's the same money, but it's not the same thing. It's exactly what you were talking about, is saying that this is the growth of what's happening, and this is how it works. And when you come to a point where you can show that inland wetlands is taking as much, a third of the time of your time, then it's time to look at it again. So I think it's a big deal,
Right.
quite frankly. I mean, this is how all of this works. Nothing happens overnight, but
Correct.
you have to build the
Build the case.
case and be able to say it. So if it's not 7.5 hours, and it's really 15 hours, then next year it's 24 hours, then that's what you need to do. And I'm not telling you how to do it. All I'm saying is that doesn't help me here looking at these numbers. How would I ever know that you really need to have that person at halftime, say?
Just keep in mind that when you do that, you're taking the hours off of the planning director, and that's not to say that we don't need a full-time planning director, and we don't need to take hours away from the planning director right now either. So,
But a lot of this is offset by revenue, and one doesn't do one thing without getting something coming in. But if you want to be honest and open about what really is happening downstairs,
Yeah.
I think that's what you got to do. I mean, I'm not saying that we can do it all. I'm just saying that it should be somewhere that we can say we've got those, that's the time he's putting in.
And does that pose any problems with reporting benefits or anything else? If we just went even 50-50, does it matter? Or 25-75 with Gary's?
We could make a modification.
But it's just a swap, and it doesn't make any. There's no legal problems. There's no benefit problems. There's nothing else. So it would show different money in different columns. I have no problem with that.
If I can just add to your point about the trends, in our town, a lot of the land that's flat and easy to build on has been built on. So we observe a lot of the new developments happening on steep slopes. And these are places where, like the solar farm and Gateway, and these are places that are going to take even more energy from a wetlands agent.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Gary, when you come back, I'd be interested to know what you think. Like, if you did have an intern, what some concrete ideas of what could be done, how that would translate into savings. I think, an intern. Where I work in engineering, we have interns, and we get a lot of value out of it, and it gives a lot of value to the intern himself or herself. And it's a good value. It could be a good value to town, and GIS seems like that may be a very good fit for more interns. In the meantime, because I know you're asking for a full-time GIS assistant, but we probably can get a lot done with an intern or two
Right.
if you have some concrete needs.
Yeah, I'd be
So-
happy to bring that back to the board.
Other comments? Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Gary. Thank you, Brian.
I'll make note, we just reviewed the inland wetlands budget too. It was 132.
Correct, right. Yeah.
Just so you know, it's a small budget, but it's $21,707 being proposed up from $20,524, and the only real difference is wages and benefits on that. So next is building department, Mr. Oh yeah, sorry. I guess is there any questions on the inland wetlands? Further questions? I'm sorry, I looked up and you're still there, Gary. Good, thank you. Joe Smith. Building department.
Same as town building.
Mm.
Huh?
No, it's building.
No, it's building maintenance.
It's 104.
104.
Yeah.
I remember that from this morning, Joe. Remember our conversation? I've been around and around with Mr. Smith on this. I have we at a future. Let me set this up. At a future Board of Selectmen meeting, you're going to get a request for appropriation of $12,000 because his department is starting to show signs of running out of money for his. You'll see line 212, building official. Those are all part-timers. We have 2 or 3 part-time people that help out the chief building official. As you know, there's a whole lot of building going on in this town. It's not just the big projects. It's people putting solar panels on their houses, of which this board approved a major program earlier this year. It's just the mom and pops putting in a new kitchen and a new bathroom all over town and new porches and things like that. The building official has to be involved in just about everything that happens in this town when it comes to construction. So using 2 or 3 people has its advantages, but a lot of disadvantages. And I'll say that, as a business owner, I started thinking about what it would be to have 3 people under Joe instead of just having 1 person. And 3 people under Joe means Joe's got to supervise 3 people. He's got to check 3 people's work. And he has to go and double check some of that work sometimes, even though these are qualified people, each certified in their business. But it makes our building official less productive and efficient if we have 3 people. So this next year's budget, we have made some changes to the budget I think you have in your book. Is that right, Anna? There's a change that we're proposing of increasing the 212 line, and we adjusted it again, tweaked it a little bit because of hourly things and
35,000.
all. We adjusted to
35.
no, it's more.
Oh, it can?
43. Is that the number, Anna?
Well, actually, the proposed budget as the board has before them,
It's 35.
is 35,000.
Right.
When we met and discussed earlier today, we had talked about 43,000.
43,000. And what that would do is enable Joe to hire one person at 28 hours. That's the difference there that we talked about earlier because of some contractual issues. 28 hours a week. That's under this person would be a part-timer. And so there's no benefits involved and all that. At about $30 an hour. And that would turn out to be $43,000 a year. That would be one person that could help Joe out, and he could build a rapport with, a trust with, some confidence with, and then Joe would be a little bit more productive in going out and doing his work, and this part-timer, this person he hires, could go out and do his. Of course, Joe is the ultimate official, the ultimate person responsible in our town for building code. It would sign off on all the part-timers' work, but I'm asking for your consideration on this budget to actually go to 43,000 on that one line, 212, which changes the bottom line, Anna, to
Mark, you're saying
something.
we're going from 30,
It's-
right now they have 3 people filling in that, and now we're going to have one.
Well,
20
one person comes in one day
Okay, yeah.
because they can only do it because they're part-time. They have to go
Well,
work
no,
somewhere else.
I concur with you. That's
Yeah.
difficult to manage.
And, and then another person sometimes comes in. One person's out on some knee surgery right now. He'll come back and put in some hours here and there. We have major projects going on in town. Joe, do you want to elaborate at all? How did I do?
Very good. You touched on pretty much everything. The key to this would be actually finding that individual.
Right.
Right now, I have 3 very qualified people, and possibly none of them would want to have that role. So I may have to go out and find the new person who's willing to work, 3.5 days a week. A lot of people would like to work here part-time. I could probably get 40 people tomorrow, but none of them have experience, and I have to have experienced people. I can't spend 2 years training somebody who's going to be around for 3 years or 4 years or something. So we have to find the right person. Right now, we have qualified people, and they're working the hours that they have. They really can't put in more because their jobs require them to work hours when I would like to have them. As soon as the weather breaks, we're going to have a ton of work piling in. That's why we'll be coming back to the board for increasing that line in this fiscal year. I will run out soon. We have time to do this. It has to go to a town meeting and everything. We have time to do that. But come July, I anticipate things being just as busy as they are now. The Gateway project will still be going on. The project's down on Main Street. Things are coming in steadily. And really, the weather's the only thing that's been making it sensible over the past couple of months.
I'll for the record, put in that you were budgeted for the revenue account this year. The building department was forecasted to bring in $345,000 in building permit fees. They've actually brought in over $400,000
So far.
so far.
Yeah.
So far it's only February.
Right.
Okay, so he's actually about $55,000 over his revenue right now.
Don't ask for more, Joe. That's what I'd be saying.
Well, I
Let's-
can't.
Let's.
I can't see putting on a full-time person now and laying them off in July. You know what I mean?
Right.
And note that, and I've said this before, but the money that comes in now, in this fiscal year, is for work that I'm going to do next fiscal year. If somebody comes in to build an apartment building and they give me plans next week, the work's going to happen in the summer and fall. That's what's happened with Gateway. That's what's happening with.
To that point, last year, the actual 2014 revenue was $476,000. Again, then we forecasted 345. So almost 500,000, $476,000 was collected then, and that was the Gateway project and a couple others. But now the work is being done in a different fiscal year. So there's a lot of revenue coming in. There's a lot of workload here, and I think we need to support the building.
look at
It's
the-
very important.
Hit that camera on him.
If you look at the revenue as an indication of work,
That one's not working.
It's not working.
when we were in the past, pre-recession, 2004, 5, and 6, our revenue was just over $300,000 a year, and we had 2 full-time building officials. It dropped along with the recession to a low in 2008-9 of just under $200,000. At that time, I had money in my budget for part-time help and basically just didn't use it because I just didn't need a person. And so it really spiked last year with close to $500,000. And a lot of that work I'm doing now, this year, it'll carry through to the next fiscal year. My revenue projection for next fiscal year isn't as high as what we're taking in this year.
Right.
Because, like I said, we take the money in this year, we do the work next year.
It would represent an $8,000 increase from what was proposed. Your bottom line would be $211,351 for the 2016 budget.
So this would amount to 1 full-time and 1 part-time position? To what, how, in terms of actual bodies? What
Myself
are
is
we looking at
full-time.
going forward? Yeah, okay.
And a person working a bit more part-time than I'm getting out of the other individuals part-time now. And hopefully as one individual rather than, I may still have to break it up if I can't get with one individual.
So like you and a third and 2 quarters or something like, yeah. I know that doesn't add up to a whole person. but-
Right. Yeah, right, it's not, at this point, we're not looking
Yeah.
for 2 full-time people.
Okay.
And another thing to keep in mind is every year things get more and more complicated in the building code itself. Every time the state adopts a new building code, there's more that we need to do. If you go back 15 years ago, we weren't dealing with high wind codes. We were really not dealing much with worrying about flood. We had some regulations, but we never really thought about it. Now, as the codes come into play, they're bringing much more emphasis on energy conservation. So we need to spend more time in the classroom. We get new books and we have to learn them, and we have to apply more time on the job. I used to allow approximately a half an hour for an inspection. would do a framing inspection on a house, and I would figure it'd take a half an hour. Now I allot an hour to that. So if we go to a house and we're going to do a framing inspection, an electrical inspection, a plumbing inspection, I may have to put a person there for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So the time that we spend on each project, the time we spend for each dollar we take in has gotten bigger and bigger. Over the next several months, I have virtually every afternoon blocked out just for 2 projects, just for 38 Hope Street and Gateway. So, those projects, while they will end sooner or later, they're almost half of the time of my department.
Have our permitting fees kept up with the increase in complexity that these inspections involve? Obviously, we're not going to be 7 times Waterford, but is this taken into account when we're looking at permitting fees?
As long as the revenues have been adequate, I haven't looked to change the fees. We did create a minimum fee a few years ago, a $50 minimum fee, because the simplest job is going to take an hour. For between paperwork, driving to it, spending 15 minutes there and driving back, it's going to take an hour. So we changed it from $10 fee to a $50 minimum fee. That was quite a few years ago. I'm also looking this year to amend our ordinance in the next few months to create a reinspection fee. I don't expect it to generate a lot of money, but I do hope that it will result in a lot of contractors not wasting our office's time. They've developed a habit with certain contractors, it's not across the board, where they'll have me come out and do an inspection, not really care how big long their list of failed items are. Then we'll go back a second time and they're like, okay, you took care of half of them. Then go back a third time to cross off that list. They're taking advantage of us at that point, and that's what I'd like to cut
So
down.
you'd like to encourage them not to get you there until you can do the majority of the work that needs to be done?
Right.
As far as is possible, some things have to be done.
Right, if they haven't gone there themselves to make sure that their subcontractors finish the work, they shouldn't be calling me to go there and make sure their subcontractors finish their work.
Thank you.
So I'd say based on the numbers, I mean, it seems like, I mean, we're bringing in, this department's bringing in more than they're spending. And on top of that, the admin clerical is in this budget, and that also supports zoning and planning, right?
That's correct.
So
Zoning,
I
planning.
would fully support the part-time. It seems like that would make more sense. And especially, it seems to me like it would make more sense, especially if you had one person, because they're gonna be revisiting these sites. And if it's the same person, it's a little bit easier than if you have to have someone else coming in, you know, different, because I know there's 4 or 5 times the inspector has to come in.
Right, I have to basically debrief them at the end of the day, because I'm not
Yeah.
gonna see them for another week. So that when the next inspector comes in tomorrow, I can tell them what went on 2 days ago when they go back to that job site. As Mark
Right.
had mentioned earlier on.
So I suspect you're in support of bringing that part-time,
I-
bringing it up. That's gonna make your life a little easier, give you more support.
Whatever I can have is better.
Yeah, I
I'd
know you
love
asked
to
for a
have
full
full-time
person, but this is definitely,
If I can find the right person. I
Yeah.
may still have to break it up among 2 people.
that may take time, but okay.
No. In this day and age, there's no one out there that's, that you could take under your wing for 43,000 and say, come in 30 hours a week and, we're gonna get this done and down the road, there's a full-time job maybe. That's what I'm kinda looking at. 7 hours a week, I know it helps you, but it's still one of those things where you're out there all on your own most of the time. I only say that because I think that there could be some hungry people out there that would say, I would do that full-time job, or not quite
28
full-time, but
28 hours.
with no benefits, and come in there and do that and show up a lot more than 7 hours a week.
They would not be qualified. I can't teach them and do my job and expect them to be helping me. They need, a few years' experience at least.
But you don't think there's anybody out there with a full year's of experience that would like a phenomenal job in the town of East Lyme?
I've reached out many times over the past few years to people through the state's, the state maintains a list of building officials and assistant building officials who are looking for work. And also through other connections that I have, repeatedly looking for people who want some part-time hours. And then I look at the responses I get, and I might get 20 responses, and 18 of them either have no experience, or I know them and I don't think that they're what East Lyme wants. Just because they've got 5 years' experience doesn't mean that they are who we want.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. All I'm saying is keep an open mind that
Oh,
if there was a,
Somebody gave me a chance
I don't
one
know,
day.
a retired guy and said,
Well-
you know what, I would do 25 hours a week. You know
My
what I mean?
office will help you throughout. I can reach out to other CEOs in the area towns. Maybe there's another part-timer out there floating and looking to split
Right.
his time.
To be honest, I'm picky,
yeah,
and
Sure.
and I've been fortunate because I'm picky. The people who I've had come in here, Dave DeLue, Steve Way, Carl Auer,
Houseman.
Dave Hausman,
Yeah.
each one of them have been very good. They all are better in one way than another, and I never knew what they were going to be. I knew Dave. I've known Dave for 30 years, but aside from him, I really didn't know what was going to happen until I brought them in. So I had to go by the resume and by their experience, and we've been fortunate.
Great. Thank you for your service. Any other questions?
Do we need to,
Well, we're going to vote on the whole budget line by line, but we'll make note of that.
yeah.
And hopefully
Just-
you guys will support
The
what I
43,
think
yeah.
is the right thing to
Just
do.
note the admin, we're bringing the part-time up from 20 to 25. Is that
We're
correct?
bringing the admin down